Hello there, Cineboys to Cinemen here.
Hello there.
Hello. Just a quick little bit of grovelling, actually, before the episode begins. We'd really appreciate it if you wouldn't mind giving us a 5-star review on Spotify, or the equivalent of a 5-star review across all of the podcasting platforms that we are on, including
Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, SoundCloud, Google, or Audible.
Also, if you happen to be someone that isn't just one of our friends or family members listening out of politeness, please feel free to follow us on the Cineboys to Cinemen Instagram, which is CINEBOIS, the number 2, CINEMEN. That would be a good way to sort of keep up with what we're up to, and various little bits and pieces as well. And finally, all there's left to do is to say a huge thank you to all of our listeners for their continued support, be that friends, family, or just the randomers who stumble across us in the podcasting realm. It really, really means a lot. We're still pretty green with this sort of thing, but we absolutely love doing it, and yeah, your continued support really keeps us going, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, grovelling out of the way, on to the episode.
Cineboys to Cinemen. Questing the cinematic void.
Cineboys to Cinemen, episode 17.
17.
Hope you're well, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Cineboys family.
Oh my god.
Yeah, family.
Comes first, mate.
Always.
Yes.
First. Family first.
Forever.
Family forever. Hi, Mum.
Hello, Mum, yeah.
Fast and Furious X is the film this week.
Yes.
Which will lend itself to a much broader discussion around the franchise itself, spanning almost 2 decades.
Christ, yeah.
Vehicular action, tense drama,
Yep.
and family.
Yes.
The love of family.
Adrenaline-soaked, petrol-soaked, I should say.
Ooh.
Gas-soaked, as they say in the United States, where this film is... well, actually, the film is set all over the fucking shop.
Fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
Straight from the cinema discussion, this one.
Yep.
We literally saw it this morning
Yep.
on the Sabbath.
Oh my god, yeah.
It feels weird to be doing it, A, straight after the film. We haven't done that since Avatar.
No, we haven't. No.
And B, during daytime.
Yeah.
This conversation,
Broad daylight.
these kind of conversations feel more suited to the sort of sweltering darkness. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've closed all the curtains.
Yeah, it's odd because like there's going to be more day after this is finished. Usually I just drive home and go to bed, which I could still do. But yeah, I don't know. It's very
I'm off
strange.
to bed.
Yeah,
Then it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
yeah.
I can't think of 2 people more qualified as people, you know, to talk about this kind of thing. Really.
No,
Although I'm not particularly into cars.
never have.
No, I'm not
been
really
either.
into cars. So
I used to be obsessed with car brands, but not the actual like vehicles themselves, how they work. Like if I break down, I'm on the phone immediately.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to bother opening the bonnet.
No.
Like yeah, forget it.
not been into cars. Never listened to Radio X.
Top
never been
Gear,
to, not a fan of Top Gear.
Yeah.
Hate Top Gear.
Same.
Fucking hate Top Gear. Actually, I fucking hate Top Gear.
Yeah.
Never been to Home Base either.
Have you not?
No. Well, maybe, but not recently.
Home base, as in there's no car stuff in home base.
Yeah, but it's the sort of the masculine image,
Oh, of
isn't
course,
it?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
Top
being-
Gear,
yeah.
Fast and Furious,
I'm with you. Yeah,
Home
yeah.
Base.
Halford's also auto centres.
Yeah. So yeah, anyway, Fast and Furious X, that'll be the film we are going to discuss, as mentioned earlier. And then a discussion around various aspects of the franchise, chiefly around Vin Diesel himself, as he is sort of the nucleus of the franchise.
Yeah.
And how his sort of the creative processes that I imagine sort of in some way involve him, even though the hire directors and he doesn't write it, but it sort of feels like he is very much the epicenter of all of decision making to do with this franchise.
Yeah, he's the through line. I mean,
Yeah.
He's the one.
And how he is sort of not much different to a child playing with cars in their bedroom.
Yeah.
And we're going to expand on that, and that's sort of going to be the spine of the review and the discussion, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Because I think there are a lot of similarities between him and a child, as far as Fast and Furious is concerned.
No, I completely agree. Yeah.
So, strap in, get your NOS, not the gas that makes your head hurt for a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the stuff they use to make the cars go
I think
quicker?
it is.
Is it
I
NOS?
think they do call it NOS.
Yeah.
The turbo thing.
NOS and babes. Get your NOS and babes,
Get your NOS
settle
and babes.
down.
Engage first gear, and then swiftly followed by second gear. And then my favourite gear, third gear.
Third gear.
I don't have a favourite, it's more of a top 5. But
Top
yeah.
5. Enjoy.
Vroom.
Questing the cinematic void.
I feel obliged to point out to you before we begin the topic discussion and the review that I don't actually drive. I should have said that at the intro. I don't drive.
No,
I'm a loser. I don't drive.
It's
I can masquerade my ineptitude with environmental concern. Yeah, I get the bus because I don't want, I just imagine a polar bear and like a sheet of ice just drifting out.
Yeah, no.
That's the reason why.
I've got a little button in my car. It says eco on it, and I press it sometimes for that same reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those polar bears aren't going to save themselves.
No,
literally
absolutely.
can't. Idiots.
Absolutely not.
Useless. I guess before we sort of start talking about Vin Diesel himself, I think it's worth sort of talking about the beginnings of the franchise. And I think me and you agree with this in the sense that the first 2 or 3 Fast and Furious films were always liked by the people you hated at secondary school.
Yes.
I think that's uniformly true.
Yeah.
And no one could argue that because it's just me and you.
No, yeah.
And that's the beauty of the podcast. That's why we do it.
Yeah. If you were with me in secondary school and you loved Fast and Furious, chances are I hated you.
Yeah, you were probably a twat.
Yeah.
It's the same people that liked. They're very different movies and in lots of ways, but they seem to like Green Street.
Yeah. Okay.
That's another sort of. And again, that episode is hopefully coming soon, and I can't wait to talk about that.
No,
but they seem to sort of all swirl together in this sort of whirlpool of this sort of shitty whirlpool.
Yeah.
That seems to be really appealing to Nuts magazine reading,
Yeah.
sofa masturbating when mum's out at Asda.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I wasn't like that. I just mean,
No, I see where you're coming from.
I just didn't watch Green Street.
No.
I was still on the sofa.
Yeah. TV was off.
Not
because of the
masturbating.
planet. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, think about those polar bears.
The target audience with both of these films, with the first Fast and Furious and something like Green Street, are predominantly male, right? So
Yeah.
it's there's a fetishization of objects or like sport, I guess. So in Fast and Furious, it's cars, right? The cars are treated almost as something to sort of leer at. Do you know what I mean? That's how they're presented. That's how they're shot. That's how they're presented.
Yeah, there is something very hyper-sexualized.
Yeah.
Not just in the presentation of female body parts, which
No.
is definitely somewhat present in the newer films, but far worse. Because you said that, because you've seen Fast
Saw it
Furious
really
1
recently.
really recently.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're I'm gonna let you run with this. Go with it.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, everything about it is just excessive. From the way that sort of female, I'm hesitant even to say characters, because they are just sort of, it's horrible to sort of present it in this way, but they're like kind of meat in the room, really.
Yeah.
And the camera sort of lingers on their sort of arses for ages, basically.
Laura Mulvey will have a field day.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, sort of, I've seen the Fast and the Furious, the first one, twice now, regrettably.
Good for you.
Yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of that in there, and it's a lot of kind of like there's sort of a bizarre code of ethics that only the male characters in the film sort of cling on to and live their life in this sort of broody kind of always looking out into the distance. They never seem satisfied with anything. No. And the idea there is that they're thinking about deep stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And also sort of the colour palette is sort of sickening as well.
Yeah, it's so lurid.
Yeah.
So bright.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Greens and reds just sort of flash before your eyes, and it's present in the new one as well, but there's loads of just women dancing near cars for ages. And
it must be a boring night out.
Oh my god.
But I don't dance or like cars, so maybe I'm not the sort of person to make comments about either of these things, but you're right in saying that is sort of present in the more recent additions to the franchise. But I think more recently the films have got a bit more of a sort of conscience to them. They're a bit more aware of the broader picture, particularly in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And representation, all that sort of stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not. It's still there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But
completely.
I think it's not as quite to the amount that it is in the early films. The early films, you could turn that on, and if Vin Diesel didn't turn up and you weren't aware of the location, you would think you were watching Euro trash.
Yeah, completely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It is. It does stoop that low.
Yeah, I think so. Really strange, and just shit. Again, not into cars, and at that age was never popular with women enough to even bother fantasizing about it. So, still not. But I just think that it really tapped into that audience really, really well. And then somewhere, I think maybe like Fast and Furious 5 onwards, things start to get a little bit less car-centric. There's a sort of a vague tone of self-awareness.
Yep, completely.
A heightened sense of its own ridiculousness.
Yeah.
And I think that takes the franchise away. I mean, there's still a sort of veneer of sweatiness to it, but it's not as quite as adolescent and wanky and wank stained as like Fast and Furious 1, 2, 3. I think I can't remember. Tokyo Drift as well. It's probably a bit sweaty, isn't it? I can't remember.
I think so.
I do remember there's just that being quite sweaty. Actually, thinking about it. My God, I got sweaty. But yeah, no, I just think it's interesting that there's a transition in the franchise to a more sort of self-aware tone. Whilst that isn't a get out of jail free card, and by no means makes the films better.
Yeah,
it does provide, I think, a much broader scope to enjoy the films.
I think
on a sort of more, I guess, superficial level.
Yeah. I think what happened was Casino Royale and the Bourne Ultimatum came out.
Right.
And they were like, okay, this is what people like now. They like kind of a more of a gritty, sort of lens dirty, sort of realism to it, even though they were sort of bound to this ridiculous premise from the start and they weren't going to really give that up.
Yeah.
And that's what made Fast 5. I really like Fast 5. I think it's really good.
Is that the one in Rio?
Yeah.
I quite like Fast 5.
Yeah.
If I had to pick, I think we said 5 or 7, didn't we, before?
Yeah. I think those two are generally considered to be the best ones.
Yeah.
Pending the critical consensus for this one, which has been quite mixed so far. But
okay.
I just think that Casino Royale, Bourne Ultimatum changed everything in terms of like action cinema, and these films became more action centric and, like you say, less racy as in literal racing cars.
Yeah.
There's less of that. They still use cars in the film to like pull off heists and things, like get through like 200, 300 cars per film.
Yeah.
They ran with that for about 3 or 4 films, but I noticed particularly with this one and perhaps with the one before as well, they went back to the street racing thing a little bit. There's an element of, and here's the word coming up, nostalgia. So I'm guessing all the sort of adolescent, prepubescent boys that loved it,
or who are now in their sort of our age,
exactly,
late 20s,
right?
Early 30s,
early
30s.
It's kind of catering for them again.
Yeah, maybe that's an interesting point.
Giving them the best of both worlds.
I'd not considered that, and I think you're probably right. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think I watched Fast 9 last night. I've seen all of them now, which I'm not quite sure how I feel about that, but I've seen all of them. And Fast 9 was definitely that sort of self-awareness and that silliness was starting to get really tired.
Yeah.
I think they really had it as a franchise. They pulled it off sporadically, but most consistently, as we said before, Fast 5, Fast 7.
Yeah.
They managed to balance the tone right, and I think it's because of the personnel involved.
Yeah.
9, it is literally just so lifeless.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, you come to blockbuster cinema expecting obviously a lot of CGI, a lot of naff characterization, and boy, does Fast and Furious do naff characterization better than anyone else.
Completely, yeah.
And I don't come in expecting to fucking, wax lyrical about the thematic intent or anything like that. But even by the standards of someone that has, a fairly positive relationship with a couple of the movies, I was like, this is just shit.
Yeah.
And I think one thing I can say to X is that it's definitely better than 9.
Okay.
It's not by any stretch the franchise's best moment.
No.
It's weird that we're talking like this about Fast and Furious, but no, I think they struck their balance, as you said. They sort of reverted back to the roots of the franchise with the street racing and the sort of arses.
Yeah, basically. There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah. It feels a bit weird saying, but there's no other way to describe it.
It's just so obvious that the objectification is just so obvious. Handed to you on a plate, and it in a way there's a nudge, wink, wink element to it, but I don't think it's excused for that reason at all. It feels weird in Fast X. It just feels really odd, and
it does. But they splice that with that sort of self-aware silliness to mixed results, and we'll save that for the sort of chunk of the discussion about Fast X specifically. But I want to move away from a discussion about a franchise. I don't think there's much point talking about the films individually.
No,
moments.
Yeah.
I mean, Not to sort of be too derogatory towards the films, but I mean, they are what they are.
They are, and they blend into one.
They
as well.
do.
They really do.
I literally had to watch like a YouTube run through of all the films because I just couldn't remember what happened.
Yeah,
and not that it really matters, as we'll explore later, because they will often undo a lot of the narrative arcs they've created.
Yeah,
for whatever reason, and we'll discuss that later. That's one of our big gripes with the series, and indeed this film in particular. But I want to sort of focus on this idea that we sort of outlined in the intro, which is, and it's something I think after watching like Fast 7 or 8, how sort of Vin Diesel is no different to a child sat in his bedroom playing with toy cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's literally what this franchise feels like to me now.
Yeah.
It's sort of got this sort of like boundless, childlike energy and enthusiasm to it.
Yeah.
That only a child can come up with. And that sort of just fucking ridiculousness that a child would concoct. It's like, Joe, when you were a kid and you would like play like shooting at primary school, armies or whatever you used to call it, and there'd always be that kid that would say, no, you can't kill me because I'm made out of metal. There'd always be that fucking kid who said it.
Yeah.
And we all probably at some point were that kid.
Oh yeah.
But like there was always one kid who just he'd heard what the strongest metal was.
Yeah.
And he always go, I'm that metal. And you'd be like, all right.
I'm the Terminator, you can't kill me.
Vin Diesel is that kid in this film franchise for 10 fucking movies.
Yeah.
He embodies that childlike sense of wonder and imagination, a very linear attitude towards good and evil, which is present in the films.
Yeah.
And chiefly as well, I think this is a big thing we're going to talk about, the ego.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Again, go back to the child who's metal, who won't die.
Yeah.
There's an ego there.
Yeah.
They don't want to lose. They don't want to die. And that's absolutely present in Vin Diesel's characterization of Toretto.
Yeah.
Not only is he practically invincible, he is this sort of, well, I mean, as I imagine, godlike deities would be. They are invincible. He is the god of the franchise.
Yeah.
He is the philosopher of the franchise.
Yeah. Everything centers around him.
Everything.
Every plot point, it's always about him or maybe kind of his son, I guess. But it's always an extension of him.
Extension of him.
He's the kind of supermassive black hole around the galaxy of supporting characters, and they all just revolve around him.
They sort of just bumble around him. They just bounce like turds in a moving train toilet. Do you know what I mean? They're just sort of just there. And he professes his love for them and does anything for them, apparently. But it doesn't really feel like they have a lot to say.
No.
It's all him.
Yeah.
And the ego, I think, is so central to that. The ego of him. And we talked about this before, and in this context, I don't know how we squeezed discussion about when we talk about action cinema. We talked about how, like, in Eastern action cinema, there's this sort of, like, there's no ego. It's just about making the best thing they can make. And if they have to put their bodies through hell to create that drama, which is so essential to the best action films, and they'll do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were talking about how it's lacking in mainstream action cinema in America, or Hollywood, should I say, sorry, or even the West, but mostly Hollywood, with the exception of John Wick, in the sense that these big action stars bring an ego to the table, and that ego prevents drama because they've all basically got it written into their contract. They count punches and they don't want to lose fights, and and that to me feels like the sort of child in the room with the cars feels all the more, I guess, sort of pertinent, knowing that that these sort of huge action stars, these people that like go around and they always come across so humble, as I'm sure they probably might be, but they've got this carefully cultivated Hollywood persona, and these characters are an extension of that persona, and it prevents any sense of drama at all in this franchise, I think. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right in the sort of the childlike allegory that you sort of presented there, like, because throughout the third act of this one, your voice in my head, it was just like a child moving cars along a Scalextric track, or even if they're a bit younger, like a train set or something.
Well, do you remember those rugs?
The
rugs with the roads on.
Yeah, there's sort of that sort of primitive version of Scalextrics when you're a bit younger, but you still go with, And in this one, there's a set piece which reminded me of it so much. Basically, what happens is two helicopters.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. Yeah. God, I don't even know if spoilers apply because
to be fair,
everyone can come back.
It's all the fucking same with it. Yeah.
So Dominic Toretto, driving along a freeway, or the Portuguese equivalent of a freeway, and he gets two grappling hooks sort of Pierce's car, and it's 2 helicopters. So immediately I was literally thinking of like 2 best mates. Yeah, you know, with one of them with like a Hot Wheels car, and the other one with like 2 helicopters going. I'm going to put grappling hooks in your car. Well, I'm going to drive faster, and then the 2 helicopters are going to go and explode, and it's going to be a big. And you're dead, and I'm not dead because my car's fast enough to, even though, like, you know, physics-wise, that just wouldn't work for a start.
Of course,
isn't. I'm not going to rag on that side of things too much.
No, there's no point. The series prides itself on that element of it, which I sort of don't mind.
Yeah, no. But at the same time, I was just like, that is exactly what someone like me or someone like sort of the people I sort of grew up with would have done.
Yeah,
would have been like, pew, grappling hook in your car. And you know, the sort of quick decision making, but like, in terms of translated to the big screen, it was just bizarre. Baffling.
It is, it is very strange.
Yeah, and another thing to sort of note with this one is because that criticism has been levelled at them. The contractual obligation to throw an equal amount of punches and have no one lose a fight. I think the way they got around it with this one is they never had 2 important characters fight each other at all. It was always one important character, aka Michelle Rodriguez, and one less important character, Charlize Theron, or a villain. Yeah. It was always constructed that way, so they kind of navigated around that criticism in this one by basically just having none of them fight each other at all, really.
Yeah. And it's interesting you sort of say that because in Fast 9 there's a fight because John Cena is the villain in Fast 9.
Yes, yeah.
And the fact that he's now an ally in this film talks to another aspect of Vin Diesel's ego, which I'll jump onto after this. There's a fight scene, a very brief fight scene in a London pub between the 2 of them.
Okay, yeah.
And there's about 3 or 4 punches that connect between them, and the fight stops. And that's the only time they actually fight physically on the big screen.
Okay.
Given this is like the villain, and you want the payoff, you don't really get it.
No.
By the rules that the franchise has established, you don't get it.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right, and it's something I'd not quite considered until you mentioned this to me earlier, that there is, like, they're avoiding those arguments from happening by simply making them either not having those scenes in at all, or shortening them to the point where no one can come away saying they look worse off than the other.
Yeah, and they never do.
Which is a load of shit, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. I just think, but, you know, and it speaks to this wider this wider idea of the celebrity, and that we're sort of putting these people on these sort of fucking like pedestals, and you know they gaze down upon us. And I think obviously if you're in that space for too long, in some cases it's going to warp you in some way, and I think this is an extension of that warping. You almost start to believe your own hype, your own sort of like your own status and symbol.
Yeah,
because that's the only reason I can think would sort of dictate the decision making behind that by saying no, you punched me twice.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I just think that's mental.
It is
personally, but obviously that's again something to do with the wider nature of the celebrity, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and it just you're meant to be a collaborator, right? With screenwriters, with directors, and you're meant to, you know, there's going to be some back and forth. If you're like a producer on the film, or if you're the big action star, I get it if you have a bit of a say in how the story develops, but you've got to trust their judgment. And if their judgment is you're going to get pummeled in that fight, you say yes. Like, why? Who cares? Like, it's not,
no one's going to care.
You're the main star. You're gonna have a redemptive arc anyway. So
and you're going to come back and win, surely.
Of course, because that's the way everything.
If you're Vin Diesel in Fast and Furious, you know you're going to win.
Yeah.
There's no way you're ever going to lose.
No.
So why not get pummeled a couple of times? Like, I don't know. It seems strange.
Yeah, I just think thinking a bit more broadly in terms of celebrity. There's actually a really interesting interview by Daniel Radcliffe.
Right.
And he was talking about his sort of brief but significant sort of struggles with alcohol abuse, right? And he said the reason why I sort of fell into that was because there was an expectation on me to be delighted all the time, and he, you know, that's got to be hard. So on the flip side, you know, you can sort of understand it to a certain extent. Although,
of course,
you know,
I mean,
why the ego thing is there, and it's.
I mean, there's 2 podcasting titans, Ben. Who better placed to understand the perils of fame?
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, those numbers. You know, the listening numbers, the Instagram interaction.
Yeah, I know.
You know, I Can't leave the house now.
Certainly
Which suits
not.
me, really.
I have to, I've almost ran over a fair few members of the press.
Yeah. But
It is just odd to me that that's the way that they've landed, because there is a way around that, and there's a way to be both sort of gifted and decent, and there's a way to
absolutely.
I just really think it's damaged it quite a lot.
100%.
Yeah.
And I want to just jump on the point I sort of left halfway earlier, but it ties into this about the nature of the ego thing, is that the characterization of Toretto is that even like in the context of John Cena, who's now the ally, I mean,
Yes.
is that he can't, even his enemies end up liking him.
Oh yeah.
So the franchise is just littered with like these enemies that are like out to like fucking flay him, chop his bollocks off, and make him eat it.
Yeah.
And then a film later, they're like, he changed my life.
Yeah.
Like he changed my life. I've seen the error of my ways.
Yeah.
And these are people that like are prepared to like garrote his kids. You know what I mean? Or kid. Yeah. And I just think that's again another extension of that childlike ego. That sort of like, no, because everyone likes me in the end. Everyone likes me in the end.
Yeah.
You know,
completely.
It's strange. What are you saying about the sort of the death of tension in the series as a result of the counting punches and all that? It also there's a much broader issue, and it's certainly apparent in the latter stages of the franchise, and especially apparent now, particularly in the end of Fast X. Nobody dies permanently in Fast and Furious.
Yeah, no. And you know what we were talking about earlier about the whole self-awareness, you could maybe get away with that plot device a couple of times, twice maybe.
Yeah.
It's happened a lot more than that.
Yeah.
It's like at least 5 or 6 instances of it now, right?
Yeah, I mean, Fast 9, there's like a major character who dies quite early on, comes back. I forgot his name.
There's a big Michelle Rodriguez's character plot device about her. She gets killed off, doesn't she? In one of
when
them?
does she come back? Is it 5, 4 or 5? I can't remember.
It might be
Was it
6,
Yeah.
and she's like lost her memory again. Convenient
Classic
narrative
device.
device.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just... I mean, to be fair to them, they sort of... With that particular comeback, they drew it out over a film, I guess, so there's a bit more justification, but there's so many instances of it. Most so, and I will say spoilers now, because it is quite a big spoiler, Gal Gadot, although, did she come back earlier on?
No. She dies, I can't remember which one she dies in.
Yeah.
5?
5, I think
I
it
want
was
to say
5,
5.
yeah. Exactly, but this is another problem with it.
Yeah.
Just not,
And what that does is that it completely saps away any tension. And it wouldn't bother me so much if the franchise wasn't that concerned with generating tension, but they clearly are.
Yeah.
Like, they frequently mine Toretto's backstory and his history to dredge up these characters from his past.
Yeah.
Or these people that expose parts of his past, and this is going to put him in a sort of a situation where he has to choose between certain individuals.
Yeah.
And I just think, well, when this happens, I know for an absolute fact that no harm's going to come to him, or probably no one else. And if it does, they'll be back later.
Yeah, they will.
And they'll sort of come back, and they'll sort of come back with a queef.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like no one's going to be like, oh, whoa,
oh,
he's back.
Jesus.
We're all going to be, all right, he's back, obviously, because that's what this franchise does. It's so afraid of killing off his characters, and I wonder if that's something to do. I mean, it feels like we're ragging on Vin Diesel a bit. I don't actually dislike him at all. I don't have a sort of strong opinion about him either way. More probably be the better way of putting it. But it just feels like this sort of theme of family, which is obviously so intrinsic to the franchise and clearly important to him.
Yeah.
It just sort of like gets rid of any of the tension, and that should be where the tension comes from.
Yeah.
If
completely.
it's about this collection of people that have built this bond over so many films, if you start like chipping away at them, that's going to really make you think, fucking hell, like the stakes have risen.
Yeah.
And as an audience member, as someone that's sort of like quite dispassionate about the Fast and Furious films anyway, it might be quite hard. But if you're really into it, there might be a heightened sense of tension.
Yeah.
And we sort of talked about this before in the context of Marvel movies. I mean, like Marvel films don't really have a great deal of it, and they've tried to do it more now, particularly with the ending of their whole sort of Thanos arc shit.
Yeah.
But even then, they couldn't do it in a way that was particularly impactful.
No.
Like the death of Tony Stark, they flirted with it at the end of, is it Infinity War or Endgame? Which one's
Endgame is when it actually happens.
Yeah, so Infinity War.
Yeah.
And he's sort of like, I thought, bloody hell, they're going to stab him to death. That's a cool way to kill him off.
Yeah.
But they would never have done it that way. And of course, his death was going to be heroic.
Yeah.
And I remember saying that before we went in to see the film, that
Yeah.
if there's going to be any deaths of the major characters, it's going to be heroic. So it's not just Fast and Furious's issue.
Yeah.
It's like an issue more broadly about this sort of... There's a sort of, I think, a fiscal reasoning behind this, and I think it partly that, and in the case of Fast and Furious, also Vin Diesel probably being like, no, bring him back because it'll be like awesome, and the arc completes itself. It's all about family, you know. But I think that fiscal reason is also a huge part of it.
Yeah,
perhaps
completely.
maybe more so for Marvel, because a lot of the side characters that come back in Fast and Furious aren't that seismic.
No, it might be because I don't have that enough of a stake in the franchise. But whenever they come back, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. Oh, you bought them. I wonder how much you paid them this time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think, at least with Marvel, there's there's the fact that you're dealing with superheroes is they've got very clear strengths and weaknesses, and it's a little bit because there's more of a science fiction edge with Marvel, obviously.
Yeah.
You can get away with it a bit, but with this, there is, and still a very, very small peppering of reality going on.
Yeah.
So it is just odd when, like, I mean, third time saying spoilers, but John Cena's death in this one, it was so brief.
Yeah.
I was like, you haven't killed him off at all, have you?
If
Gonna be
he's not
yeah.
back in the sequel to this film, I'll eat my hat.
Yes. I'll eat my shoe, just one.
Just one, then have to hop out the cinema. Vomiting. Bile dripping out your mouth.
I don't know.
There's just nothing. There's just no. There's nothing really to connect to, and I wonder if that's like deliberate. I wonder if it's more just like Vin Diesel's so desperate to sort of have that emotional connection to the audience that you sort of are supposed to forgive that.
Yeah,
and again,
maybe.
if you have a stake in the franchise and really like it, then you're probably going to be swept up by that.
Yeah.
But for some bitter cynics like ourselves, maybe we're just, embittered cynics like ourselves.
I think, I'm going to sort of touch on what they did with Paul Walker, obviously the fact Paul Walker's death around the time of Fast 7 getting released, or it was halfway through filming, but that send-off that they gave him, obviously he didn't die, he just moved on. And the reason why they gave it so much time and attention was obviously the tragic circumstances around the actor who played him, not playing Paul Walker. I can't remember his name, Brian. But that send-off worked so brilliantly that I'm confused as to why they haven't tapped into that ever so slightly a bit more. Like, if they want to get rid of a character and maybe bring them back later, if they want to, should they choose to, why not do it like that instead? Why not give them a bit more of a sort of graceful send-off?
Sort of like maybe like when their hand is forced by tragedy, they have to sort of maybe step outside of their comfort zone and actually do something that might be more impactful. Yeah. Because in Fast 9, there's like a scene where it's like at the end where they always go back to the house, don't they, and sit down and have a meal. And who's going to say grace? And there's a space at the table.
Right,
and it's Brian coming back in a Subaru speed. See, car names. There we go. There we go. I think the one time I saw a Max Power magazine was at the bottom of a school field. It was obviously like breasts on one page and a Subaru on the other.
Right,
and that's why it's etched into my memory. Like 95 boys. Yeah. Just all stood around.
Oh my god.
This sort of sticky, creased, almost bathed in ethereal light as well. The light shone down upon it. But anyway, like he turns up in a Subaru and it ends. Obviously, he's not going to get out the car.
No, God, that would be
unless it was his brother, because I know his brother did some of the stand-in scenes for Fast 7.
Yeah, it was a combination of stand-ins, CG, and reused footage from all the other films, back to the first one. Yeah,
and
quite a good feat. Actually.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, it is. Yeah, I think you're right there. And that's something I've not considered. That sort of, when your hand is forced, maybe they would push them out of this comfort zone, which is sapping away any element of sort of tension. I mean, blockbuster films are going to have tension to a point. Yeah. They're never going to like fully commit. They're going to dip their toe in tension because that's the whole point. If you want a whole family to sit there, you're not going to have, John Cena's huge abs get looking obliterated by a car dashboard, you know, and his corpse sliding across the road, his skin getting flayed by the hot tarmac in the Portuguese sun, then pecked at by vultures in the post-credit sequence. You know, that's not going to happen.
No.
So I don't go into a fucking Fast and Furious film expecting to have my buttocks permanently clenched. I understand that obviously this is a film for mass appeal, broad appeal.
Yep.
I just think even by the standards of blockbuster cinema, theirs is particularly shoddy, and it just has it doesn't thematically valueless, and narratively valueless.
Yep.
And the only people that ever seem to suffer are the antagonists, which again goes back to that sort of childlike sort of linearity in how they perceive good and evil.
Yeah.
And you know how it's evil that always has to die, and good, even if they do acts along the way that aren't particularly great, it's always in the pursuit of a higher goal. Yeah. Which again is very much classic Hollywood narrative structure. Yeah. So it's weird that that's quite childlike as well. Maybe.
It is, yeah.
And maybe that's why the children have that view.
Yeah, because it's simple.
It's easy to pick up.
So linear, like you say, yeah. It is just laughable to me now. And not laughable in that they're laughing with you. It's like, I do think Vin Diesel? Vin Diesel.
That was his real name.
Yeah.
He walked into the casting office like, Vin Diesel.
Diesel, right. It is just... I wasn't laughing with them at all.
No.
I was like, you really think this is acceptable kind of narrative construction here, and it's just like they've clearly won over people's hearts with this franchise.
The fact that it's gone on for so long, right, must mean that.
I know, yeah. And Universal put $340 million into this latest one, which is so much money, and so they clearly think there's going to be an audience there for it. So they've got some goodwill there, but that's going to run out, man. I mean, it's coming to an end soon anyway, but I don't know. I think it might end with a bit of a whimper for the reasons that you say, that there's no tension in the first place. Yeah, I just think...
That's interesting.
I just don't know of any way they can recuperate any of that tension. It's just not
finishes
there.
on a cliffhanger.
It does. It does.
You know they're both going to be all right.
Exactly.
But, I don't know. Maybe that suspension of disbelief, there's a thrilling element to that.
Yeah.
Do you know, and it goes back again to that sort of old school blockbuster experience and the sort of whole point of watching a film anyway, really.
Yeah.
I mean this more for big spectacle movies. There has to be a suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
There's not a great deal of worth to sort of sitting there and not doing that. If you want to enjoy a film like this, you have to suspend it, and you have to. And with Fast and Furious, you have to suspend it far beyond the realms of what is, expected. So maybe that's why, and maybe people are far more willing to do that than we are.
Yeah,
and that's not to say that I don't love blockbuster films. I think we, here at Cineboys of Cinema, we try and, to quote Homer, enjoy all the meats of our cultural stew.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I love it all, and I think that's it was something that we aspire to do with the films we talk about. So it's not, it's not because we'd rather be sat at home watching French films from the 50s. It's just, I think, even within the parameters of blockbuster films, there is good and shit ones. And I think a lot of the choices made in this franchise to push it more to the latter, which is a shame, because when it is good, it is good. I mean, there are points in this franchise that are genuinely, they get the tone perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect within the context of Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
And it does make for a genuinely enjoyable at points experience. So I think there is genuine life in this.
No, I think so.
Even for people that, stroke their chins and go, oh, Bergman.
I don't know. I just see, it depends on how many more they're going to do. I'm not too sure.
Well, this is allegedly, the next one is the final one, right?
Okay, so they're doing 11. 11 main within the main. I mean, there's 11 anyway with the spin-off, but yeah, I don't know. I just don't see it ending with any kind of real. I might be wrong. We'll go check back with us in a year's time.
yeah.
And we'll be like, I loved it.
The ending was sublime.
We'll delete this one in a year's time because of how much we love the next one. Yeah. It was like a shameless retcon. Good things about it. I know you mentioned something earlier, which I'm quite keen to talk about in a bit of detail.
So we're talking about Fast X now, yeah?
Yes.
The review.
Yes.
Okay, good, yeah. The Rome sequence, yeah, good. Good. I think that's one of the best shot sequences in the series for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it does just get to a point sometimes where it gets so fucking brainless.
Yeah,
I mean, there's like, there is a way to shoot car films amazing. I mean, obviously, a great fucking car chase is so good. You're thinking films like Bullet, and The French Connection.
Yeah, man.
There are, or perhaps to a lesser extent, but still great. The opening to Drive.
Oh yeah.
There are great, driving sequences in cinema that are fucking amazing, and even like the most, bare bones derivative chase sequence in a film is a ball ache to make.
Yeah, I
imagine.
God.
I've never
Mad
done it,
Max,
but
Fury
Mad
Road.
Max, fantastic. How do I forget that?
Just as an example,
Exhausting to watch. It's that good.
Exactly. Yeah, and apparently really, really difficult to shoot. As
well.
Yeah,
I can imagine. Nightmare.
Yeah, if you want to do it right, you can tell there's like a lot of choreography, a lot of planning, hundreds of people involved. Not only from the crew, but also like councils and stuff, like or like the local authority who have to sort of approve these things and make sure that they don't damage any of the landscape or that kind of stuff. So it's just a mammoth undertaking, and it makes you feel sort of guilty when you sort of come away thinking but in the context of the Rome sequence, I thought it was quite good. By no means the best chase sequence I've ever seen in a film, but Justin Lin, who I imagine was directing that at the time, I know he jumped ship a couple of weeks in, so it might have been
the other guy,
Louis Letterer.
I don't know his CV, so I don't want to comment too much about
The
that.
Incredible Hulk, the Marvel film.
Really?
Okay. The Marvel's Incredible Hulk.
Edward Norton Hulk.
Yeah,
right.
That's
okay.
right. What else has he done?
I knew you'd know.
yeah. He's done a few pretty middling action films.
Okay. Well, I guess because I was sort of going to say, if it's Lin, you sort of understand. He obviously knows how to shoot a Fast and Furious film because he's done a couple.
Exactly.
But maybe his DNA was already there. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's a well-made sequence with some decent choreography, decent, obviously, again, talking about driving like I know what I'm talking about, but it's really well put together.
Yeah.
And there's the element of tension with the bomb.
Straightforward.
Which they genuinely sort of half deliver on. I mean, I think they say in the aftermath only 9 people died, which I thought was a cop-out.
Yeah.
There's
that news sequence, isn't there?
Yeah.
And the news sequence seems to contain rushes from the shooting of the film. It's just you haven't bothered to get any sort of ground level phone footage. It's just
it happened. The aftermath would be fine. It sort of reminds me of the bit in Batman vs Superman where they lure I can't remember the fucking villain's name is, but the big fucking bloke, the big brown monster thing.
Oh god, Doomsday.
That's it. And it cuts to like the guys in some sort of military office, and a guy just goes, "It's uninhabited." Everyone's gone home from work. You know what I mean? It's just that little throwaway line of dialogue that's sort of just, there's obviously some sort of like committee that say don't kill too many people because that will give the film a macabre edge that we don't want.
Exactly. And
I think it's the same here.
I think that ended with Man of Steel because that was one of the criticisms. People started to realise, like, hang on a minute, like you've just levelled an entire city. Maybe you should consider civilian casualties, even because people are going to cotton on to that eventually. Well, it was never a problem in the past, but someone on Twitter has just gone, I can't believe how many civilians you killed in this film, and then from there on in, all the there's got to be that throwaway line of dialogue, which is great. It's
really strange, but I liked that sequence a great deal. It was. When it's like it was sort of reminiscent of when it's good. And I thought I was genuinely like, obviously, again, we talk about this, we've said this a lot, tension, that word's come up loads, but there wasn't a lot because, it's going to be sanitised to high heaven, but in the build up to that, it was genuinely good, enjoyable.
Clear. I think they did actually film in Rome as well, which is always commendable because that can't be easy.
No.
I liked the straightforward nature of it all. There's a bomb, it's rolling down. Rome isn't that. There's no real incline that would mean a bomb would roll all the way from the Trevi Fountain to the Vatican. It's not going to happen, but I didn't really care. No. And that's that speaks to how well constructed it was. It doesn't seem like there's an awful lot of visual effects in it, obviously apart from the bomb itself, which is like the size of a small house. Yeah, no.
Tell me they didn't blow up the Vatican for Fast and Furious.
Yeah, well,
I mean, if I was the Pope, I'd think, well, if there's any reason to blow up the Vatican, it's for this.
Yeah. I like the idea of him being on the phone, and someone's just like, "Are we going to do that?" And he's like, "How much are Universal offering?"
Who's in it? Gal Gadot comes back. Blow it up.
Blow it up. I don't care. I'll move elsewhere. The minor criticism, obviously, geographically speaking, that ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, no. I mean, the geographical element of the film, actually, the sort of the country hopping.
Oh, God.
And you said something quite interesting that I'd not considered, was the sort of how excessive the film is.
Yeah, yeah.
And it might be the most excessive out of all of them so far.
Yeah.
Which I guess would sort of be fitting, given that it's like, the penultimate film.
Yeah.
But the films have always been drenched in a sort of sickly excess, haven't they?
Yeah. And that extends to just how often they switch countries.
Yeah.
We had Rome, obviously Rome and Naples in Italy. And you had Portugal. It goes back to Rio de Janeiro for quite a lot of it, and then there's obviously the Los Angeles. Is it Los Angeles?
Yeah, it's London as well.
London, yeah, I'm quite. Yeah, that's 6.
Yeah, it's a lot of countries, man.
Why? Like, I don't know. I mean,
it doesn't really serve the narrative in any context other than maybe the global appeal of the Fast family. I don't know. Maybe that's part of it.
Potentially, yeah.
But I sort of struggle to understand why that's so important.
No,
maybe just sort of pad the runtime out with those deliriously sickening crash zooms and sort of like sped up whip pans of buttocks, and obviously not in England. It's all grey in England. There's no buttocks in England.
There's a Southeastern Railways train in it.
Okay.
That's our version of the Rio
the sort
fireworks.
The fireworks. Christ the Redeemer.
Yeah.
Loads of sort of beautiful Brazilian people scantily clad dancing. Not in the shots of England. There's none of that.
No, dark brown bricks. Basically, when they were constructing the London sex.
Yeah, that's also a bit in the film we need to address. The London sex.
Yeah. When they were constructing the London sets, it was just dark brown bricks.
All the alleyways are really sort of, they look like they stink.
Yeah.
Funny. I find that quite sort of funny, the sort of juxtaposition of that with other countries that are so much brightly presented.
Yeah.
Accurate, really.
Oh, yeah.
The excess of it is strange. And it's also just the excess of, the amount of fucking, just amazing cars. I mean, I don't even really like cars, as mentioned in our intro, but it's it's also sort of delirious. It's like there is so much wealth here.
Yeah, it's mental.
That's just being obliterated in the pursuit of more wealth. It's like, surely you're all right now.
Yeah. Can you not just retire?
Yeah.
With the amount of cars, and because there's even a bit where you see their bank accounts, and obviously the plot devices like Jason Momoa, who we'll get to in a bit. He nicks all their money with a touch of a button, which is quite funny in itself. Yeah, they're doing all right for themselves.
Yeah.
Again, and then that doesn't contribute well to the tension because they don't really have anything to strive towards, financially speaking, anyway. So why bother?
Yeah, I guess it's sort of like the morality element of them has always been sort of semi-present. I've always sort of imagined that Vin Diesel sort of got this sort of Robin Hood-esque view of him and his merry men. You know what I mean? They're loaded, they got loads of money, but they share it out probably. Who knows? In between the films,
there's got a weird communism element to it. Yeah,
everywhere he goes, everyone fucking loves him. It's really strange, isn't it? It's funny because in Fast 9 there's this attempt to sort of dabble with the notion of muddying his legacy as a character.
Oh yeah.
And sort of John Cena is the brother who's always been in his older brother's shadow. And it's that sort of frustration which creates the villain. So there's this sort of suggestion that Toretto casts this shadow across the whole franchise and across everyone else, and no one really gets room to breathe. I might be giving it a bit too much credit here, but even still, Vin Diesel will dabble with that for a very short period of time before reverting back to type, reverting back to this sort of the guiding light for everybody. If he's not there, nothing good happens, and only bad things will happen if he's not there. And it's I don't know, again, we've talked about this ego thing, the childlike ego and this sort of FOMO. You know what I mean? If he's not there, shit hits the fan, and when he arrives, everyone's face brightens up. Even his old enemies, they sort of give him a wry smile, a nod. This guy is just, he's not only is he unkillable, he's absolutely unhateable. And those that do hate him genuinely have to be unhinged. They can't be just people that are sick of him driving around obliterating their city.
They have to be psychopaths, don't they?
They can't be people that are just sick of him. Like any rational person would be. So here he fucking comes again. to just to say some sort of airy sofa philosophy bullshit, and then get in his ridiculous car, which is killing the polar bears, and fuck off to another country.
Get a private plane, which isn't just a private plane; it's a military private plane.
He's pulling favours. Somehow. Even the people in the CIA think he's fucking brilliant, all lining up to empty his balls.
Yeah,
I'll have my plane, Dom. Take
it.
Yeah, it's so weird, and that's the thing about it that I find so strange. And I know we've talked about this again already, so I'm not going to sort of linger again for too long. But it's just so weird to me that he has managed to make 11 films. I know he's not been in every one of those films, but it feels so self-masturbatory.
Yeah.
And obviously I don't know him personally. Again, like I said before, I don't have a strong opinion of him either way. But, I mean, there's that shot in the climax of the film where he's driving down a dam, isn't he?
Yeah.
And there's this horribly CGI shot. It just looks so CGI to the point it just looks like a cartoon.
Yeah.
Of there's fire, the dam's exploding and his car's behind and he hits the NOS.
Yeah.
And it's like the fusion of man and machine. And then the camera sort of whips through the sort of engine that's engulfed in flames and then sort of is birthed from the flame, and then just sort of the camera just tracks across his muscular arm and then back into the car.
Yeah.
And I just think, why? And it focuses on for enough of a moment to this sort of
2 or 3 seconds.
And he don't know, he's got good arms. This guy clearly
it's not his arm, though, it's a computer generated model of his arm.
A version of his arm.
Yeah, with sweat sort of dribbling down.
Yeah. And I just thought that was like the fucking apex of it for me. I was like, this guy is nuts.
Yeah. He just doesn't. He can't see the wood for the trees anymore.
No. I wonder how much that shot cost.
All right, I'm going to try briefly
because
consider this.
Yeah, go on. Give us your.
So you've got a lot going on in this shot. You've got fire simulations. You've got water simulations with the sweat.
Yeah.
You've got soft body physics, which is skin, so his biceps, although maybe not that soft because of how rigid hard they are. Yeah,
rock hard.
It going all over the place. It lasts a good 10-15 seconds. It's got to be about, it wouldn't surprise me if it was over £1 million.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not being funny. Will have done. Because you got quite often these things have versions as well. So they'll have a version work in progress. They'll get studio notes. They'll get Diesel notes. They'll get notes.
Diesel notes.
Yeah, Diesel notes. They'll get notes from the director, and it'll all come back, and they'll have to spend more money on it. It wouldn't surprise me at all because I know that this film is drenched in CGI, but the shorter the shot, the cheaper the shot.
Yeah. Okay.
And this one was really long. Like there's a shot in Titanic which is about 20 seconds, and that was over $1 million in 1997. That was $200 million
okay.
movie.
Yeah, that puts it into perspective, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it will. I might be wrong. It might have been in the thousands, but even so, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that is mad.
And just going back to that excess thing, it's odd. This is one of the things which was slightly off-putting for me in a time as of now. As we both well know, like economically, not the best time in the world to sort of be alive, and it is just a shame to see that amount of money spent on a narrative which sort of encourages excess. It was just, I just didn't like it this time around.
It doesn't sit well, does it?
No.
It's sort of that sort of film as fantasy, film as a escapism. This is the purest form of it, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's
like,
why do I want to sit in an office that's grey and it's raining outside when I can be Dominic Toretto?
Yeah.
With my, the babes and the cars and my kid, But it's all right because family's amazing, and in this world there's no imperfection.
Yeah.
If there are imperfections, they'll be ironed out by a line of dialogue from Vin Diesel.
Yeah,
there's a simplicity. Yeah. There's no attempt to observe the socio-political landscape.
No, why would there?
Why would there? And I agree with you in the sense that that it does leave sort of a bit of a bad taste in the mouth.
I think so. Just the 340, that figure keeps coming back.
Yeah, that's a lot of fucking money.
So much money.
I guess if film is escapism,
it's going to make it back.
It's going to make it back, and it's going to just in the eyes of the people involved with making the film, it's going to justify it because everyone's watching that film with a desire to escape.
Yeah.
which I guess is, I mean, if you think about it in the context of the Great Depression, in America, cinema did really well during the Great Depression.
Right, yeah.
So, when everyone was skint, people's desire or the aspiration to aspire to something more or to escape to something was heightened.
Oh, okay.
So, in that context...
Didn't consider that. I think maybe I'm just a bit bitter because of how expensive stuff is.
Because you don't have the cars.
No, I don't. I've just got the one.
The one.
Yeah.
And the Renault. Where's your Nos and your Renault, mate?
No, exactly. It doesn't have
Where are the babes in the Renault?
Yeah, no. It's just me, mate. Just the
me.
One babe.
Well, that's it. Just how I like it.
Yeah, I don't know. And how hard it was to acquire said Renault. Difficult.
Yeah.
Another story for another time. So we've just both recently become homeowners, and I don't know. There's something about like that seeing that amount of money spent on one thing is just annoying to me. But like you say, it might be justified, and it might actually weirdly mean it might have done some good certainly good for the people that made it. If it makes it back, if they've got a kind of back end stake in it, then
I mean, it's always going to be the thing that with something that we love like film, it's always going to be that little niggle. Because there's a lot of money, and it's the same when I think about sport. I mean, I love football. I'm a huge football fan, but it's hard to ignore the simply disgusting amount of money that gets thrown around.
Yes, yeah.
And I can't really see a way of justifying that. I know a lot of people can.
Yeah.
And that's a different argument to be had. But, like, there is just something about that will always sit a bit oddly with me and make me feel a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah,
but will it stop me from watching it? No.
Yeah.
Will it, at the moment anyway, it won't. And it's the same with movies. Like, obviously I will, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be way more impacted by a film that's going to cost significantly less than that. But there's a reason why these films do so fucking well, and that amount of money they spend is an investment on the desire to escape, the mass appeal of escapism, I guess.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
But definitely worth bringing up though. I think. Because the film is these kind of films are particularly excessive, and as you've said, with the sort of globe trotting and the cars and the sort of the male gaze. It's a coin movie. Like it does feel very much applicable.
And there's no real consistency with it either. Actually, that's a problem I had with this film as well. It felt quite muddled and inconsistent, where in a way that some of the others haven't. Like Fast 5 was just basically Rio, heist, Happy Days. All the characters are together. They're all separate in this. And if you're going to talk about family, why are they all in different places?
But they're separated, mate. That was the villain's plan all along. Separate, divide and conquer.
Yes.
And then I imagine they're all going to come back in the end. I sort of imagine in the next film it's going to be like Statham. They might get The Rock back, although he probably won't come back because there was a lot of bad blood between everyone and The Rock, wasn't there? Which again talks that celebrity ego thing again. Tyrese Gibson calling him out, which is hilarious, as he's easily the weakest person in the Fast and Furious franchise by a mile. I mean, Ludacris isn't far behind.
No.
But, like these superfluous characters that have these sort of jokey exchanges with a sort of R&B jazz background thing that they keep. I mean, the R&B background is constant. It's just this sort of like auto-tuned droning shit. It's just sort of like, it just chugs along in the background. But in the interludes of apparent comedy between Ludacris and Tyrese Gibson, there's this sort of like bass-driven like funk thing. It has the production value of like the Pornhub intro. You know what I mean? Like, and they're just sort of navigating these desperately unfunny exchanges.
They're not funny either.
No,
really
dreadfully unfunny. In fact, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Every time they had a moment, I just felt like my whole body recoil and shrivel.
Yeah, it took away from the sort of relatively well shot action sequence.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
But it seems to be like a mainstay, like a constant. It's really weird.
In 9, when they went into space, there was loads of that going on whilst they were going into space. The space thing was like a bit much for me anyway. I thought like it's the
only logical path of progression, Ben. Where else?
But it's childlike again. Going back to the childlike thing, it's just like imagine those characters in space. And they delivered on that, and then they kind
I
of
sort of admire them for in a way. I've always sort of admired them, and I know it's not to. I don't want to derail your point that you were halfway through making, but which I definitely have. Sorry.
no,
but
I'm
like,
finished.
there's something admirable about the childlike nature of the ambition. And then he's in space.
Yeah,
And he's back in Portugal. And there's fucking explosions, and the Vatican blows up in Rome at the same time. You know, like,
yeah.
it's just like someone hasn't had their Ritalin.
Yeah, no, you need to calm down.
Calm down. Diesel.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a coincidence that is he called Vin Diesel in real life? Or is that a stage name?
I imagine it has to be a stage name.
Because it's I just thought of this. Diesel, as in the fuel.
Exactly.
Could be. No, he's called Mark Sinclair.
Mark Sinclair.
Yeah.
I thought it was Colin Wilberforce.
Colin Wilberforce.
Colin Wilberforce / Vin Diesel. No, so what's his name? Mark Sinclair.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, to be fair, you can understand changing your name, can't you?
Yeah.
Not to rag on the name, it's very normal, and that's probably why.
That's the point, yeah.
Hollywood has a long history of name changing, doesn't it? Sometimes
completely.
for quite horrible reasons, but
yeah.
more recently, I guess, it's to make you more marketable.
Yeah,
particularly if the vast majority of your presence in the sort of landscape of Hollywood is in car films.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Why not? Yeah, Mark Sinclair. That is, yeah.
Mark Sinclair.
Very ordinary.
Jason Momoa.
Okay,
The
yes.
villain. Thoughts?
I wasn't so hot on him, actually.
Oh, okay.
I thought he was enjoyable to watch and his performance was good. I thought he really went for it, and he kind of knew where he was. He knew it was ridiculous, right? Yeah. And he kind of knew what points to hit. But the actual character, I thought was just, I don't know why I found it so off-putting. That he was obviously, I mean, he's meant to be. He's a villain, right? But he kind of, like when he was painting the toenails of those dead people, I was like, if you want to, it was a really obvious way to say, like, this guy's a crazy person, right?
Yeah.
The fact that the only character in this entire franchise who sort of dabbles in that sort of metrosexual persona was a villain.
Yeah.
A bit like, ooh, I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little bit too woke here, but I don't know. Yeah, something about it didn't sit well with me. Ultimately, he was good in it though. I think
it's. I mean, I think he's just obviously like you said, he knows where he is. He's hamming it up.
Yeah, big time.
Big time. He really goes all in. I think the intention is maybe levity to sort of offset Mark Sinclair's / Vin Diesel / Colin Wilberforce / Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel. I'm keeping that in. That's pretty good.
To sort of offset his remorseless seriousness. I mean, he's so remorselessly fucking serious in this film, and he is always serious. And I guess in that way, it sort of works. I mean, you can't really sort of talk too much about it. It's a very sort of familiar thing for an actor to do in a franchise like this, which is ham it up, poke it up, and he does an all right job of that. I mean,
no, I do agree with you that it was fun to watch and like kind of isolated from the rest of the film. There were some quite funny moments with him as well, but there was also quite a lot of irritating moments where I just thought, oh, that line really didn't land. What we talked about this. I thought his like the reasoning for him being a villain was a bit like throwaway as well. Like it was just the son of the guy in Fast 5.
That's all they do now. It's just the past. It's always, that seems to be like a really common sort of motif for the Fast and Furious films these days. It's just someone from the past. It's either family or someone that knows something about his past, or like the fucking second cousin dog walker's best mate of the villain that died 9 films ago. That's come back for revenge. You know, it's it seems to be a big part of it. And I think that's just because, again, it's that intention to try and sort of generate some kind of tension and embed itself deeper in the themes of the film, which is about legacy, family, you know, all that guff.
Do you reckon in the later one he's going to become an ally? Or do you think he's too far gone?
I think he's too far gone by the standards of, because whereas a lot of the other characters have been evil, there's a sort of overt sadism to him that I think is, again, sadism in 12A sadism. Yeah.
12Aism.
12Aism. Ooh. There's that bit where he licks the blood off the knife. I thought that's a bit strange for a Fast and Furious film to do that. Yeah. I think he's too far gone. I don't think he's coming back. I think he will be one of those villains that is going to get iced
Yeah.
pretty spectacularly, I assume. Or it'll end in a fist fight where Vin Diesel... Because Vin Diesel tends to have those in those films. He has, like, fist fights where it's like him displaying godlike feats of strength.
Yeah, punching people through walls.
Yeah, and, like, lifting cars and stuff.
Oh, he does that in this one, doesn't he?
Yeah. And it's a bit like... I don't know, like, again, where's the limitation for this guy? This guy, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, what's the fucking point?
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of the same problem that I guess, like, Superman sort of has. And if you're making a Superman film, you sort of have to navigate that and make...
Yeah.
You have to commit as well. If you're going to go for people he loves, you have to fucking commit to that. Because that's the whole point, right? But there's going to be none of that with Vin Diesel.
Yeah. It's funny what you said earlier about him displacing people, the family.
Yeah.
That's sort of thinking about it is actually maybe one of the slightly cleverer aspects of the film. His tactic.
It's a thematic device, isn't it? And again, this sort of franchise-long obsession with family. You know, if you divide that family, literally and metaphorically, you are going to, I guess, create some kind of tension. Although, again, as we've said, there wasn't a lot in it for us, but maybe if you're more inclined to enjoy the series, you will.
Yeah, indeed.
Charlize Theron's back as well. She's a bit of a long-standing villain. She's been in a few now.
Yeah, how many has she been in?
3 or 4, I think.
Oh, right, okay.
And I kind of liked her a bit because it's just familiar tech, and she's hamming it up.
She is, yeah.
And she's probably better at it than Momoa.
Yeah, I think so.
There's a sort of coldness to her.
Yeah,
I always think which she's obviously amping up to 11. But yeah, no, I don't know. It's overall thoughts. Not the worst Fast and Furious film, but by no means the best.
No. I thought in places I was willing to suspend my disbelief enough to enjoy it, like we were talking about.
Which is essential, yeah.
I mean, I've literally just seen it and I'm struggling to think of any other moments.
Good sign.
Yeah. The bit with the helicopters was just balmy. Like, but again, relatively enjoyable. Lot of Michelle. I like Michelle Rodriguez, especially after Dungeons and Dragons. I want to sort of revisit her and sort of maybe watch a bit more of what she's been in. I really quite like her actually. I think she's good. She doesn't get enough to do in this one. No, I don't think. I think the fact she was separated from it all, although she is in quite a lot of scenes, her scenes through no fault of her own were a bit weaker. Yeah. She's just in prison for a bit, and then she has to break out of the prison, and then she just goes to the Arctic at the end. And then Gal Gadot's reveal. She seems to know that they're walking, even though she's in a big nuclear submarine. She seems to just know that they're walking towards her, and she's like, like smashes through the ice, and she's like, "Hello,
back again."
Yeah.
So, you're back.
Yeah.
Like, is everyone just like, no one, all flame retardant, no one dies?
Yeah, no one dies. No. Everyone has a sort of tracking beacon as well.
Yeah.
They just know everyone's location. It's quite funny.
Yeah, very strange, yeah. Brie Larson turns up as well.
Yeah.
I feel like her trajectory since Captain Marvel, she's really settling into big blockbuster movies now, isn't she?
Yeah.
For someone that started out with fairly humble beginnings.
Completely, yeah.
I'd be interested to see how her career goes on, because you seem to find with a lot of these actors who make the jump to Marvel, they struggle to jump out of Marvel and land into, because I think a lot of the reason they leave, they get fatigued with the sort of expectation of what being part of Marvel's about, and how there's a lot of detractors of Marvel, particularly a lot of people that as an actor you would probably want to work with.
Yeah.
So I think that's why you see that these actors leave and then subsequently struggle to land those sort of big roles in sort of smaller movies. But I'd be interested to see how she goes, because after The Room, I can't think. Obviously, you said Short Term 12 as well, didn't you?
Yeah, that was one of her sort of earlier independent films, and then Room was probably the last independent film I remember.
Fantastic actress,
really good. Yeah.
So like, it'd be interesting to see what she does, because I mean her role in this film is fairly sort of throwaway. Yeah. But I'd be interested to see what she does moving forward. Yeah. Does she revisit her humble roots, or does she keep sort of doing stuff like this? Yeah,
no, either or, I guess is all right. But I would like to see her in another indie actually, because been a while since she's displayed some real chops. Isn't her role in this is, like you say, seemed like quite easy to play.
Yeah, there's not a real. Yeah, it could have been played by anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact she's there adds a lot of additional star power for sure.
Yeah.
But it's like there's not really anything there that's like dependent on her as an actor.
Yeah.
So yeah, there we go. I don't really know what else to say about it. As you said, we literally watched it about 2 or 3 hours ago, and I've already forgotten most of it.
Yep.
Which is a sign of the film and a sign of the times.
Yeah.
But it's not worth being too cynical about because it is all right overall.
Yeah. I'd say it's worth a go if you want some mindless fun. And to laugh at a lot of the gaping plot holes. And
I think that's sort of part of the joy, I think, for it. I mean, for me, I expect the plot holes, so I'm not surprised by them.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what I expect, what I feel when I come out of them.
No.
But I guess in the context of films like this, it's all right.
Yeah.
And if you enjoy, as you say, Ben, if you enjoy looking at gawping at plot holes, gawping at Vin Diesel's hole, that doesn't happen. Then check it out, I guess.
There's probably like a water cooler effect that happens with the silliness that people are going to be like, oh, did you see it? Yeah. How ridiculous was that? I can't believe they brought that person back again. I can't believe it. That in itself might weirdly be a selling point for it.
I don't thought about that. Yeah.
Who knows?
Right then, shall we end it there?
Yes.
Brum. Parking.
Questing the cinematic void.
There we have it then. There we have it.
There we do.
We have it. Fast and Furious X.
Yep.
All right.
Weird
to talk about those films for such a long time, actually. I'd never given them a huge amount of thought until we decided we were going to do it.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, interesting. Anyway, moving on.
Yes.
Next week, Beau is Afraid. Ari Aster's third feature.
Third film, yeah.
Third feature. A film that seems like quite the departure from his previous works, which are horror films.
Yeah.
Seems like a real sort of expansive, sprawling movie. The kind that sort of reminds me of like a big, dense American novel. Do you know, one of those kind of things?
Yeah,
like,
completely. I mean, Inherent Vice springs to mind.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah,
Another Joaquin Phoenix performance.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah.
Love the book as well. But one of the few Thomas Pynchon books I've read, but brilliant. But yeah, I completely agree. It just has that sort of sprawling quality to it, which from the trailer, I usually try and avoid trailers, but obviously when you go to the cinema you can't avoid them. Maybe too sprawling was my initial concern for the trailer.
It does look a bit scattershot, a little bit. I think I watched White Noise, the Noah Baumbach film. White Noise, that suffered as a result of the sprawlingness of it all. And I'm a bit worried about it because I didn't like White Noise at all, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, but interesting because I really love Hereditary. I think Midsommar, Ari Aster's second film, is even better.
Agreed.
Personally.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I've got high hopes for it in that respect. I think he's quite a talented filmmaker.
He's one of the shining lights, I think. So particularly as far as like Hollywood or American filmmakers go. I'm really intrigued, but not without my reservations, which should make for an interesting discussion.
I think so.
Hopefully, Ari bashes them away. Bashes us off. I mean, that'd be bizarre. Just in the cinema trying to sort of like, if I just do this, would you be positive about it?
If we sort of do a glowing review, then be sceptical.
Because be worried. You sound a bit really tired afterwards. Interesting to talk about that. But in the meantime, enjoy this. Enjoy Fast and Furious.
Yes.
Love your family. Drive hard.
Yes.
Should have said that the other way around. Fuck it. See you later.
See you later.